Austin did say, please give me the 24 rotation. So screw it. I'll do that. Keep commenting if you've got comments. Keep liking and subscribing to the channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? But I'm gonna hold off on reading comments because I'm gonna try to see this through as I name the 2024 rotation. Miles Michaelis is in it. And I'm not even going to try to give you the order. I'm just trying to give you 5 names right now. Miles Michaelis is in it because they just paid him to be. Steven Matz is in it because they have already paid him to be. He's under contract, both those guys, for 2 more years after this one. Matthew Liberatore is in it. That is what I think. Um, 10 innings and 14 strikeouts, I believe, the lines for Libby after 2 starts in Memphis. He looks like a different pitcher. Ollie Marmol believes he's a different pitcher. The Cardinals believe he's a different pitcher. There was a conversation in Ollie's office a few days into the season. It was the day after Libby's first start. And a question was asked, like, hey, Ollie, did you see Liberatore? And you could just kind of tell the look on his face, like, yeah, they're liking what they're seeing from Liberatore. And he's going to be here soon. Like, someone's going to get hurt. Something's going to happen. I think he's the next guy up when they need one. Now, obviously, Waino comes back. Then there's a Woodford question. It wouldn't surprise me if Libby can lap Woodford, though, if he continues in AAA looking the way he's looking, hitting 98. Like Matthew Liberatore, lefty with that kind of velo, if he can maintain that, that's why he was a top prospect. I mean, they knew it was within him. They knew he had the capability one moment. But to see that kind of jump in his velocity, that's significant. That's notable for Matthew Liberatore. And like the Cardinals are in on it. They think he's going to be good. Remember the Rosarena trade. How long has John Mozeliak been hearing about how that didn't work out for him? And how long is, Liberatore still been in the organization, but just hasn't maybe lived up to the billing yet? This might be the year he lives up to the billing. That's what I'm going to say about Liberatore. Like he came in. I remember winter warm up, and a lot of times guys talk at winter warm up, and you're like, okay, sure, you're in the best shape of your life. That's great. I don't know. I got a different sense from Liberatore that it was kind of like, yeah, I learned some things last year, and I want to have a bulldog mentality on the mound, and I didn't feel comfortable enough, I guess, to do it last year. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but I just felt talking to Libby that it was like, all right, bet, like let's see what you got this year. And the fact that he's doing it down in Memphis in a way that he didn't do in Memphis last year either, like last year, they called him up to pitch some in St. Louis because they had to. They just, they had a need. But it wasn't like his Memphis numbers were dictating that. He had like a 5 ERA in Memphis, had like a 5 ERA in St. Louis. He wasn't, he struggled all year. He wasn't the pitcher that he had been. I think this year we're going to see the pitcher that he had been, the pitcher he's going to be. And so what that means is gets a cup of coffee this year, has enough innings because like the Palante issue is I think Palante could be the caliber of pitcher to be in the rotation next year if you had if you didn't go out and make some moves in free agency or trade. But at the same time, he's not going to get the innings. If he's a middle reliever for this team, he's not going to pitch enough innings to be able to start for next year's team. And so I feel like that sort of is why I'm going to exclude him from it right now. By midseason, we might see them say, hey, we're going to build up Palante. We want him to get innings. And then I might change my tune. But for now, that's the way I see it. But Liberatore is going to have starters innings, whether he's here in St. Louis or in Memphis. So I think for sure by next year, I'll pencil Libby in. He'll probably be like the number 5. But I think the Cardinals are going to need to have confidence in some of those pitching prospects to make the move. And he's the most kind of experienced, seasoned of the group. And so I think he's in the rotation next year. I think it's too early for McGreevy. He's still at AA. I'm going to say too early for Graceffo, unless Gordon Graceffo just lights it up in Memphis as well and then is able to get a cup of coffee and they like what they see. But I'm going to say no, not quite for Graceffo in the 24 opening rotation, but I say he could get there by season's end because it always takes more than 5. But that only leaves me 3 names so far, so that's a little tricky. I'm gonna say, Wainwright is not. I do think this will be his last year. Um, Jack Flaherty is not. I don't believe the Cardinals will re-sign him. I do not believe the Cardinals will re-sign Montgomery. And the reason they didn't sign him in the offseason, to me, is the Scott Boras factor, because if he goes out and has a, sub 3 ERA, which is possible, and throws close to 200 innings, which is possible, and wins 15 plus games and strike out, 180 or 200 guys, all those are possible. I'm not saying he's getting the Carlos Rodon contract, but that's the way it can work for a guy who, has one great year right before free agency. You cash in, and if anybody's going to help him cash in, it's going to be Boras. So yeah, I think that's why the Cardinals he in like in some quotes you may have read, Jordan Montgomery sounded kind of miffed that the Cardinals didn't really engage in terms of like an extension before the season and said, we had time to do it and it didn't happen, so we're not going to have those talks in season. I think that I kind of rolled my eyes and said, okay, I mean, what else is Montgomery going to say? But also, he knows that there was not going to be an extension done. His agent would not have allowed that, right? He's going to, So I think Montgomery's pitching for a bag. I think he's going to get a bag. I think he's a good pitcher and deserves a bag. I just don't know if it's going to be the Cardinals, signing the check that gives him the bag. So I'm telling you a lot about who's not going to be in the rotation, and I've struggled to tell you who's going to be in it. I don't believe it's going to be Shohei Ohtani. Just so you know, that's a lot of money, and I don't think the Cardinals are gonna dip their toe into that. Let's see, guys. We're talking about Lance Lynn. I don't know. I mean, Lance Lynn's going to probably be a workhorse for years to come because just the type that he is, just a bulldog. But I don't know if I see that. Um, looking else. Do you wish the Cardinals had held on to Quintana despite the injury? At the time, I said yes. I thought it was a mistake to let him go for the money that he went for. But you know what? I was wrong because he does have that injury, and maybe the Cardinals. I don't know if they had any way to know about that, but maybe they just said, "Hey, we appreciated what he gave us, and it's going to be something where if the Mets want to sign him for that deal, that's great. We feel like we've got guys that are already penciled into our rotation, so we're good with where we are." And in retrospect, it's fair to mention your misses, right? I was beating the drum and saying Cardinals, just give him a couple of years, it's fine, and I was wrong because it wouldn't have worked out. I think if they did that at this point, so Shane Bieber would be great. So yeah, we've got three starters that we're talking about: Michaelis, Matz, Libertor. I'm penciling him in. You're probably going to have to get somebody, whether it's a sign or a trade, and it would be nice if you're getting somebody of a Shane Bieber caliber, right? That would be good. Yeah, Waka and Senga, Kodai Senga. Sorry, guys, I'm going to take a drink of water real quick so I can stop. What I need to do is check the age on Jordan Montgomery. I know he's like 30, 31, but I want to know like what type of 30, 31 he is. Okay, December 27th birthday. Um, so I looked at the 1992 and I was like, wait, 30? He's 1992. I was 94. I'm close to 30. Crap. That was a jarring realization. Anyway, we'll gloss over that one. So Montgomery will be 31 when he pitches his first pitch of the 2024 baseball season, and he will have signed his contract. It'll probably be like a 5 or 6 year contract. He'll probably want six. I think he can get five. It'll be more than 20 million per year. I think that because I'm projecting a little bit with that prediction, but I think he'll have a very good season for the Cardinals. Like I think by the end of the year, if Montgomery is your third best pitcher, you're really happy about that as a Cardinal fan because it means two other guys were better than him, and I think he's going to be like a 3.5 ERA, workhorse guy, get more strikeouts than you might think, pitch to the defense when he needs to. I think he's going to be pretty good. And so, yeah, I think he could get 22, 24 million a year, 5 year contract. I hate doing the contract guessing game because people are going to hold me to that. And then his season's going to happen. And then you're going to go, oh, well, you idiot. Like, obviously it's this or it's that rather than what you said in April. But hopefully you guys are going to bear with me and know that I'm just kind of putting myself on the limb and based on what I expect him to do this year with the stat line I just described, yeah, I think there are a lot of teams who go, "Oh, I'd love that in my rotation for the next 5 years. We'll give more than 20 million a year to get it." So I think 5 and 100, 5 and 110, that wouldn't shock me. But again, he's got to have that season. If he goes out and pitches 4.5 ERA, now you're talking like maybe not those numbers. So but I'm predicting a good season for Montgomery, and so I'm baking that into my contract. I do think he gets a 9 figure deal. I think he can get $100 million. I think he'll have the season in 23 that allows him to do so. But also, you got to figure out, okay, what's the market going to be like, et cetera. Odds on Tink Hence making the 24 rotation, low for me, Dominic. Not because I don't think he has a very bright future, but I think just the roster graduation math is against him on that, especially out of spring. Could he make a debut in 24? Yes. Yes, he could make a debut in 24. Um, but still a young guy, right? 20 years old. He's pitching right now in high A, I believe, to begin the year. Yeah, and looks good. I mean, had a 4 inning outing, didn't give up any runs, gave up 1 hit and 2 walks with 6 Ks. So he'll be in Double A this year, and then it'll be a case of coming into spring training next year. he'll be like, all right, probably start at AAA. And that's assuming he goes on like the Jordan Walker, the Mason Wynn trajectory of I'm just going to be good at every level, which is not always what happens. Progression is not always linear for prospects. So let's say he gets to double A and gets, has some good moments, but isn't just lighting them up in double A because if he is, people are going to start freaking out in a very good way. So let's just say he goes to double A. And I think he'll be begin 2024 between double and triple A. And then if he continues to prove himself, he can pitch in 24 in St. Louis. But to start the rotation out of the gate, I don't believe that one is going to happen. I feel like they could pull off a trade for Bieber. That's realistic, says Rodney. Hey, Rodney, I appreciate you for joining and for commenting. Um, it'll cost him a pretty penny. I don't know what Shane Bieber's contract situation is. I think he's got one more year after this year, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd have to go look, and I know he's in arbitration now, so at most he would have 2 more years, 24 and 25, but I think he's done after 24. But you would obviously want to extend him if you're going to make a trade for somebody. But like I don't know, the Guardians always seem to find their way into contention more often than not, and so I get the situation because they're a small market team that has historically not been able to sign long term their big names, and so people would be expecting him to walk in free agency. The Guardians might say, "Hey, we want to get something for him before that happens." Totally understand. That's why he's been a guy that's been talked about in terms of the trade market. The Cardinals could get him, but again, who are the Cardinals? Who's John Mozeliak going to give up for Shane Bieber? You want to give up a pitching prospect? It'll probably cost you like a Graceffo or a McGreevy. And if McGreevy doesn't have a great season, maybe that's not somebody that they're really eyeing in Cleveland. You'll probably have to give up some of the really quality depth that I feel like they have in terms of position players. So, yes, I think it's realistic to target a guy like Shane Bieber. I don't know what the Cardinals would want to do for a long-term contract there. Like, keep looking at the pitching contracts they've actually signed, not the ones that they've offered, like a David Price, but the ones they've signed. It's always these shorter extensions. It's the bring in Miles Michaels from overseas, see how it looks, and then go, okay, yeah, we'll do a few more years. They've been very cautious with like unloading on the long term pitching contract because a lot of times what do pitchers do? They get injured. And so it's the other side of that coin though is you never know who your rotation is going to be in 2024. I'm the guy that's copping out of it because I've said three names and everybody knows you have five in a rotation and I haven't given you the other names yet. There's a reason. I'm still thinking. I'm hoping that somebody in the comments is going to give me the answer because I don't have it right now. Um, Palante needs to be stretched out. I agree. Like, I think if you don't have more, and yes, J Ro, the Bucky's hat, they're not paying for this stream. There's no advertising but from Bucky's, but I do love Bucky's. So they get the free advertising on this one. Um, he does have upside. I really like Palante. I think he's got the demeanor to be a major league starting pitcher. And so I would like to see him get that chance. I think Zach Thompson's another guy that I think the Cardinals are going to end up needing him too much in the bullpen as their go-to lefty. Maybe Cabrera can like resume that role and look good again now that he's been called up for Packy. But I think they're going to just need Zach Thompson so much that he's never going to get the chance to start. And I would like to see him get the chance to start because I think he could be great. But alas, I think he's just going to be where he is. But man, I don't know. Palante, I think I loved his demeanor in the way he went about it as a starter last year, especially without like a lot of lead up. Nobody expected him to be starting games for the Cardinals and holding his own the way he did last year. So I would like to see him in the rotation, but until he gets sent to AAA to stretch out, or they just do it at the big league level, they make him an opener. They say he pitches 3 innings, then next time four, and then until they start taking those steps, I can't predict that he'll be in the rotation next year. Speaking about Palante, but I do really like his game. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan of Palante. I just see now that Corey had said the number one starter will be Shohei. I don't think so. Jake Woodford, let's talk about him. He could be in the rotation next year, but he's got to have to not get knocked out of the rotation this year in order to be considered for the rotation next year. I would say coming into spring, he was not somebody that you would have at all predicted to be in the rotation in 24, just because of the way the Cardinals had handled him. It just wasn't seeming like they were super high on him in his future. I am still thinking that he made a step forward this year, and it's one that they're hoping is able to stick. We'll wait and see if it does. Um, Brent, my guess is Walker and Newt are solid in the outfield, so are Burleson and DC outfielder. But if other teams know that these outfielders are kind of your cast-offs, the guys that you don't think you need, spare parts, so to speak, are they really trading Shane Bieber for that guy? Probably not. you got to consider the needs of the Guardians as well. They're probably going to want younger, more controllable assets, right? Because in Shane Bieber's case, why would you trade him if he's great? Well, the reason you trade him is because you don't think you can sign him long term. Well, Tyler O'Neill is toward the end of his team control. Burleson is very early on in his team control. They tend to like athletic outfielders in terms of their defensive ability. I don't know if Burleson would be a fit for them. I could see the Guardians being interested in a Dylan Carlson though, and a guy that's still got several years remaining before free agency. But I don't think just a Carlson for Bieber deal gets done. You're going to have to give up some premier pitching prospects, and sometimes those pitching prospects turn into the guys you wish you hadn't traded away: Alcantara, Zach Gallen. So it's within every Cardinals fan's right to dream up a Shane Bieber trade. I'm just saying, be careful with the prospects that you do trade, because you got to be right. You got to hope that you trade somebody that's just kind of meh, and you don't trade the guys that turn into all stars or Cy Youngs, because that's what Sandy did. So, ooh, Trevor, I like it. Drew Verhagen in next year's rotation. It's the same thing though with the innings. If he gets a chance this year and looks good, yeah, they'll sign him to a deal and he'll be in the rotation. But I don't think he'll get the innings. I think they're going to need him in the bullpen. Same thing with the Zach Thompson deal. Somebody come up with a name for me that's going to be in the 24 rotation. Austin says if Jake Woodford starts the game that he's at, he'll cry. Don't count Jake Woodford out just yet. I'm just saying. And thank you. I think on Bieber he's an ARB 2, so next year should be ARB 3. Um, and J Rose says that the 2025 season has promise with Wynn, Libby, Hence, maybe McGreevy, maybe. So yeah, it sounds like we don't have a lot of, and this is what the Cardinals are experiencing too. I've named 3 guys that I think are starters. One of them is currently in AAA, and that's your 2024 rotation. They'll have to sign somebody. It's hard to speculate about who they'll sign, but they'll sign somebody, and they'll probably have a Woodford or push a Graceffo or convert a Palante or convert a Zach Thompson. Those are kind of where I stand. So I'll go Michaelis, Matz, Libertor, free agent to be named slash Shane Bieber slash trade target to be named later, and then a competition between the Woodfords, the Palantes, the Zach Thompsons, the can Graceffo make the leap? That's what it looks like right now. Do I think the Cardinals will ultimately go in with that? No. I think they'll trade for somebody and then sign somebody else so that when they get into spring, it's like all the young guys are competing for the spot that I just gave to Libertor. So it's Libertor, it's Graceffo, it's Tink Hence, it's all those guys competing for the one spot, because you always are going to like your depth and you're going to like your pitching prospects. But if too many of those guys are, like, if you set up your rotation to where you need a bunch of up so that it's like those guys are bonus bats, except for bonus arms. That's the way I think the Cardinals would need to set it up.